Hey, what's up, guys? This is David Kim with Algos Explained, and this video is a follow-up to the previous video that I had creating a question on Code Wars. But before that, Happy New Year's, guys! I hope you guys are having a good week into the New Year's. I didn't upload one, I think, past Christmas, but yeah, here we are back, and I'm probably gonna upload another algorithm video or maybe a couple tomorrow. Um, but for today, here's the follow-up to the making a question on Code Wars, and um, one subscriber or one viewer messaged me and he asked me about making Code War questions, and that first video, which I will have if you look on the top right hand corner of your video, I will put a card up there linking to that video. Um, but pretty much he said that he ran into some issues, and while I was creating the question itself, I didn't understand what he was talking about. It felt smooth, but I think I know what he's talking about now, because after having made it weeks ago, it is still in beta, as you can see right over here. This is my question that I made, string of numbers, and it looks like it's still in beta, but at the same time, it looks like people have been solving it. So I don't know if these are people who are have access to beta questions or whatnot. I know people do, but yeah, if you look at all these people, they are solving it, and so I'm not sure when exactly it's out of beta, but we have had people comment on it with issues, flagging the issues on this question, and so we're going to look at that today, and we're going to kind of um, see how we can solve some of them. And so the first one that they uploaded was need random tests, and I've seen questions before. Maybe those questions I've seen before without the random test, maybe they were not in beta, or maybe they were just a very small number of random questions. But I've seen questions with maybe 10 test cases that run, and so with that, I thought, hey, I don't really need random, so I hard coded some solutions. And of course, hard coding is a red flag in coding, but in solutions, I felt like it was okay because it was just random tests. Like I hard coded some tests, I knew the exact answer it should be, and therefore, if it passed, it passed. If a user's if someone solving the question didn't get those right, then they didn't get it right. But they want random tests, and so that's exactly what I did. Um, let's see. Needs random tests. So it was an issue. It was a red issue like this one over here, and so this guy also commented on here. Needs random tests, and so I added some random tests, and then this guy here, Stefan Vogel 79, he wrote has random tests, don't know who added them. Yeah, well, I added them, and he marked this issue as resolved. And so I'm not sure if anybody can mark the issue as resolved, but it looks like here, like I could comment on it, mark the issue as resolved, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to do that just because it's my own question. It's just it feels like a breach of like abuse of power if I go ahead and like if I have like 10 issues on my question, I'm like, you know what, these guys are dumb. I'm just gonna cancel all these issues. That doesn't seem right. So I'm gonna wait until someone else comments on this one. Nobody has been, but well, I mean, we'll just see. But after these two comments, I did add some random tests, and Stefan cleared the issue for us. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that first, and then we'll come back to this issue over here. And so I believe if we go to this edit, because this was my question, I get to edit it. Um, this will look familiar. I explained it in that previous video. I guess I'll drop a link to that video in the description too, in case you missed the card. But pretty much, this was where we created the question, the complete solution. The solution that I made over here, initial solution is pretty much what they see on their screen, so they could start adding their code here. Nothing preloaded, and that's just help kind of describing what these tabs are. And so test cases here, this is going to look different. This is the same. These are just test cases, which are, if they have the area to kind of write their questions or write their code over here, you know how there's always the test cases on the bottom? That's what these are. And test case, this is what I changed. This is as a response to a lack of random questions, and pretty much my test cases was kind of identical to kind of example test cases. I just had this, and I just hard-coded a bunch of random stuff. Of course, given it would be the right numbers, but if they somehow knew exactly what test cases I were running, they could, I don't know, potentially hard-code their solutions, and I guess that's a bad thing. And so I went over here and I created some random tests. And so let's go over just how I create these random tests, because if you're making a question on Code Wars, most likely you're going to be needing some random tests too. And maybe it doesn't have to be 100. I made roughly 100 random tests, but despite what number that is, I guess it does have to be random. That seems to be a consensus on this community. So let's see. Um, so we have a solution here, and pretty much the randomness that comes from this is, well, first of all, let's take a step back. Example test cases look like this, and test cases need to also look like this. It has to look like that. So how do we make this code look like that? And that's being done right over here. See how this test.assert equals and its arguments are in here? It looks exactly like this, test.assert equals, and it has two arguments. This function that's going to run and the solution is going to expect. And so in this test cases, I created exactly that, test assert equals and the solution here. And so what happens here is I have this solution, and pretty much the only thing that's going to happen is that this is going to be their function that's going to run, and it's going to run against my function that I created right here. And pretty much if what they create a string of nums, if they for some reason, like if this is what they see, if they for some reason decide to make that into some different kind of function name, then of course it's not going to work. But as long as they keep that the same, their function is going to run here. It's going to test against my function here. That's just how test.assert equal works. And if it checks out, then it checks out. And this for loop here is going to create 100 of them, and it will create random numbers over here. Let num1 equal that, let num2 equal that. Pretty much num1 and num2 is going to have a random number. Solution is going to be using the same numbers, and the only thing that really matters is, because I know exactly what I want, pretty much I know what the solution should be because I wrote the question, is their function going to end up giving me the same thing as what I want? And I determine that by running it through my solution function. And so that's pretty much what happens. And you might be thinking, okay, this is kind of weird. Again, this is kind of what runs in this console right over here. And this, like I just mentioned, I guess, this is a console, so it runs. If I did like a console log here, how about, let's do that. Let's comment this out and show you guys what happens. And so if I validate solution, nothing will happen. But if I do like a console log, let's see. This should kind of come up right over here. See, look, STF. So pretty much this is just the console. And so what is happening is whatever happens here, it will start running it. And so this runs, the solution, well, it doesn't really run because it kind of reads that and it understands, okay, within this console, there is this function solution that can be run or not run. And so this console, it runs because it's within that code. But that's pretty much it. This for loop runs, that's what happens. Just like the console logs it, this for loop runs, and what it will do is it'll spit out 101 of these guys, and after that, the 101 of those guys will run, therefore creating those test cases and checking them. And so that's pretty much what happens if we validate a solution here. It's going to run like 100. Boom. And it's going to be different every single time because it's going to be based on random questions. So let's go and see. See, look at that. These are different. One more time. Oh, what was that? Yep, these are different. And so that is kind of how I got through the random test cases. Pretty much, you just got to do the same thing if you have the same issue being flagged on your question. In terms of creating random tests, just use a for loop. Use a for loop and use some random numbers, and have the test assert equals inside the for loop so that it runs it. Actually, I think for a second, I think I said the for loop prints it out. What I meant was during the for loop, the test runs. That is what is happening. The for loop does not run 100 times and then the test happens. Every time the for loop runs for like 101 times, and it will run these tests. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of those issues. And so this guy, he also flagged it, and so maybe he's the only one stopping my question from going from beta to live. I don't know, but it says here, inappropriate use of data types. If you want to list a number, string is not the appropriate one to ask for. In this case, it also encourages implicit coercion in solutions. I corrected that. I corrected the solutions part of it. Basically asking for bugs, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I was doing implicit coercion, which is like a hacky way of changing like strings to numbers and stuff like that. And so I changed that. If we do a quick, I can show you guys what I changed. Let's discard. Okay, so instead of this is toString now, I use the i.toString. Instead, it used to like just be adding itself to like a quotation mark or something like that. If you watched that first video, I didn't change it there, so it would be different. But pretty much he was complaining about this, which is a valid case. So I mean, I fixed it. But I guess no one else is checking up on it, therefore it's not really being solved. But the greater part of kind of what this guy said the issue was inappropriate use of data types. Yes, I am asking for a list of numbers, but at the same time, I feel as if that's not a real issue. If this is the only thing stopping my question from going to beta, then I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it because I disagree with this part. Sure, of course, I could ask for like a list or something, um, which is possible, but at the same time, this is not like it's not like a level one, like the hardest question. It's like level 8 is meant for beginners to kind of understand what they can do with different data types, how they can create it, how they can morph it. Um, and so, I feel like this guy, Johan Wiltnick, definitely he's high in the ranks, definitely. I'm only 5Q. This is 1 Dan, and that's like probably different level entirely. Um, and so he's kind of asking, which is not wrong, but at the same time, I feel like there's nothing wrong with asking people who are just beginners to do this thing with their strings and giving us a list of numbers as a string format because hey, I'm just asking you to do that because it'll help you kind of understand what you can do with strings, what you can do with numbers. It helps you understand, like it forces you to use that toString on the number. It's like he's asking, like I don't even know if beginner JavaScript users would fully start doing lists, and once it gets into kind of look asking for like arrays and stuff, that becomes a headache in terms of seeing if an array equals to an array because that's not easy in JavaScript. I'm not entirely sure if the test assert does it easily, but I just didn't want to go there, which is why I asked for strings. But um, yeah, regardless of kind of the fate of this question, if this is kind of what you're dealing with, like issues being flagged and therefore your question is not going from beta to live, um, well, I guess you're just gonna have to wait for people to come and comment on it, or you can do it yourself. I'm just not doing it myself just because it's not. I feel like it's not worth the trouble for me to kind of fight over one of these questions. But if you think like I made this question is beautiful, I'm gonna fight for it. By all means, reply to it, mark the issue as solved. Because if I did that and I started arguing with Johan, who knows? He might agree with me, but if not, it's gonna go into a discussion that I just don't want to get into. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I mean, we solved one issue, and so um, hopefully that kind of gives you a direction into solving whatever issues your question might be looking at or what issues your question might be dealing with. Um, and yeah, so that's going to be it for this video, I guess. Like I said, if you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one.